Good evening, everybody. You are watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. I am joining you tonight under some very dark circumstances. Normally, I like to say we got a great show for you tonight, and I think it's going to be an excellent show, but of course, the news is unbelievably tragic. Tonight, as you know, you're all gathered here. We're going to talk tonight about the death of Charlie Kirk. And even saying that out loud, the words are still very surreal and disturbing. I said this last night, and I meant it as I watched the chaos and the tragedy unfold yesterday afternoon, and I know everybody else feels exactly the same way. It didn't feel real. That's the characterization I keep seeing from everybody on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter. People have been profoundly affected by this, and we're not sure why. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about maybe why that is. But as I said yesterday, like many of you, I got the alert from a friend of mine who I believe was either at the event or had friends at the event at UVU in Utah. A friend of mine texted me and said, Charlie has been shot. I said, Charlie Kirk? They said, yes. And we watched it unfold live. We're still getting updates. We don't know exactly what transpired. And again, we'll get into some of that as well, some of the uncertainties and unanswered questions. But I am devastated and legitimately affected and struck viscerally. Such a sensational video, images, such an unspeakable, horrible tragedy. And I literally had to take a day to collect myself. Normally, this is a current events show. I'm live every night, and I discuss the news of the day, and I've been there through many of the big developments over the years. Same day, January 6th, Trump assassination attempt, the elections, the pandemic. But this one was different, and I think everybody feels that way about it. It felt like a nightmare. That's the only way that I can accurately describe it, actually. Throughout the entire day yesterday, I just could not process it. It did not sink in. It still hasn't fully sunk in. Like I said earlier, you say those words, the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the murder of Charlie Kirk. I watched his Wikipedia page go from Charlie Kirk is to Charlie Kirk was. It doesn't feel real. It feels like a nightmare that we'll never wake up from. And I say that as somebody who was not even a fan, not a friend, and actually an adversary, a foe. I can only imagine what his friends, his colleagues, and especially his wife, his young children, you can only imagine what they're going through. And so what happened yesterday is still so raw and so sensitive. The country is profoundly affected, at least some of it is. We'll talk about that too. And so tonight I'm going to try to the best of my ability, carry out my responsibility. I believe, and I think you know, that I'm somebody that many of the young people, young conservatives are looking up to. I have a lot of credibility with the far right, the radical right. And throughout his career, Charlie Kirk always characterized me as a troll. I don't say that with any malice at this point in time, but that's what he said. And many in Turning Point USA said that I and my followers are nihilistic. We only want destruction. And I think that I have an obligation to the country. I think I have an obligation to God. I think I have an obligation to all of you. I think I have responsibility to prove that that is not true. It's not about me, but now that it is the morning after, the day has dawned where Charlie Kirk is now dead at the hands of some unknown attacker. It is our responsibility, mine and all of ours, to step up and to get serious. To the extent that politics was fun or we took it lightly, I think we now realize it just got very real. It's been real. People talk about a civil war. They say a war is coming. Some say we're already in one. We have an obligation now. The leaders, the spokesmen, the men, the young men, the elderly men, we have an obligation to lead. And I want to start, before we get into any of it, by saying this, just as a general note. I've been around now for 7 or 8 years. That's not a very long time, but it's long enough. I've lived through a lot of these events, Charlottesville, January 6th, the Groyper War, many things. And I know that in my career, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done things I regret, said things I regret. I've made a lot of the same mistakes twice. And I've been lucky because I've lived and I have this platform and I'm able to speak to all of you in spite of that. And I think maybe one of the reasons why is because I have been afforded the opportunity to learn a lot. Having been in the center of dissident right-wing politics, far-right politics, in the center of this cultural moment, whatever you want to call that, as an archetypal disaffected young white man, angry young white man, Trump supporter, however you want to characterize that. I have been in the thick of it for a very long time. And seeing many crises and tragedies and things that we cannot explain, things that are difficult to cope with. I will say first, as I said, as a general note, before we move on, it cannot be overstated how important it is in a time like this to put our intentions in alignment with the will of God. Everybody's very emotional. Everybody is whipped up, and rightfully so, justifiably so. People are furious. I don't know that the left fully understands that. I don't know that normies fully understand that. People are absolutely beside themselves. I've never seen the right wing more angry, more furious, and this has been building. Here we are today, the day after Charlie Kirk has been killed, but we're starting here in the middle of the story. It's been going on for over a decade, and these things compound over time, and they accumulate. And I, like everybody else, recognize that this could potentially be a watershed moment. This is a ripple effect. We may look back in time and see a chain reaction, an inexorable chain reaction that leads to nothing other than destruction, devastation, bloodshed, misery. I don't think it's crazy to say millions of dead bodies. And we must have the prudence. We must have the confidence in our convictions, in our faith in God. This is the test. It's easy to believe in prayer when things are easy. It's easy to believe in God, mercy, forgiveness, temperance when things are easy. It's when things are hard, when they're confusing, when we feel justifiably angry, wrathful, prideful. That's the test. That's when it counts. And that is when mature people, and I recognize the folly in me saying that. I don't consider myself an extremely mature person. I think I'm a frivolous person in many ways. But it's an obligation for all of us to grow up now and recognize the gravity of the situation we're in, the peril that we're all in. And we have to ask ourselves, what are our intentions? We have to set them intentionally. We have to set them in alignment with God, with the gospel. We have to think not just about the present moment and what we're feeling, but about the long term, the good of our country, the good of our fellow countrymen, both the people we agree with and disagree with, our children, our progeny. And we have to think about that moment before God. We have to think about our moment before God in judgment. And we're asked about that golden rule. We don't save ourselves. We approach God with humility. We approach the judgment as weak, as mortal, fallen. Before we take up arms, before we relish in our anger and sit with it, sit with our rage and resentment and fuel it and get into these loops, feedback loops. I think it is so important. And this is why I said last night I wasn't going to do a show, and I really meant it. I think everybody needed one night at least to sleep on this, to pray, and to pray not just for the repose of Charlie Kirk's soul and for his wife and for his 2 young children and for the people affected in his organization and for the people that were closest to him, but also to pray for the wisdom, the strength, the prudence, the humility, the fortitude to approach this in the right way. Because how we respond to this tragedy, like all of these events, like all of the persecution, all of the suffering, the anguish, it will define us. It will define our country. It is life or death here. And what I am urging at the very outset of this, at the minimum, is caution. Let us not be hasty. If you're thinking of picking up arms, put them down. And if you can't be convinced altogether, put them down today. Put them down tomorrow. Let us be cautious. Let us be prudent. Let's think. Let's get right. Let's get right with God before we act hastily. And the reason I say that I have come to this reaction over many years, seeing many crises, is because not only is there a spiritual dimension to all of this, and the devil uses our emotions against us, uses our best intentions, our best inclinations against us to doubt our faith in God, that God is both just and merciful, our faith in God, that he will deliver the vengeance that we are told is not in our hands, trust in his plan and not create our own. It's not just for the spiritual reasons, but also for the political reasons. Ask yourself, we all recognize this is a watershed moment. We're never going back from this. This is the shot heard around the world, literally. One shot, one kill, an international incident, and a outpouring of both love and affection in the vigils that you see for Charlie Kirk across the country, but also in anger and resentment, hatred, people ridiculing his death, all of these different things. It's important also to understand that politically, it is in crises like these when we become instrumentalized by forces outside of our control. When we take our eye off the ball, and I don't want to be too explicit at this moment now, but when we take our eye off the ball because of something so sensational, because of something so emotionally charged, that's why they do these things. That's why supernatural as well as societal forces do these things or capitalize them and take advantage of them. And people, guided perhaps by good intentions or righteous indignation, become unwitting instruments of forces beyond their control, beyond their understanding. They become pawns in a larger game. And so, in order for us not to be agents of evil, a supernatural evil, a worldly evil, in order for us not to be instrumentalized by sophisticated and powerful forces that would use this tragedy to manipulate society for its own ends, in order to save our souls from the kind of wrath, anger, vengefulness that will surely land us a seat in hell, I would first say, before I say anything else, especially to the young people, the adolescents, that I understand how you feel, lay down your arms. Those that live by the sword will perish by the sword. Remember what Christ said. This is our cup to drink from, all of us. Death, suffering, martyrdom in some cases. It's all part of it. It's all part of life. And not to be fatalistic and not to minimize it, but as a Christian, we can't always talk about the prosperity gospel. We can't always talk about making money or prosperity and kumbaya. We also have to talk about the other side of things, which is that We have a Lord and Savior that was crucified on the cross by our sins, by our own iniquities, all of us, and not just the killers and the scoundrels and not just the obviously evil people, but also sometimes ourselves. Assuredly, everybody, you and I, everybody. So we have to take those things into consideration. We have to be humble about these things. And so that's just a word of caution. That's me trying to do my best to be responsible here before we get into the larger subject. So we'll talk about it now. As you know, Charlie Kirk was assassinated yesterday afternoon doing one of his Change My Mind events, his college tour. It was one of the first stops on his new college tour in Utah. Started out like any other day. And I'm sure for him it was just another day. He's done this hundreds of times. He got dressed, he went to the event, talked it up with politicians and friends of his, said this is going to be a great event, filmed TikToks, and all of a sudden a shot rang out. He died, I assume, instantly, although some of the details are uncertain. People fled. He's now gone. And the first thing I want to say about it after the word of caution is this. Of course, as I said, I was not a friend of Charlie Kirk's at all. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. We had a lot of differences, ideologically, politically, and we fought viciously. He did a lot to stifle my career and suppressed me in many ways, and I antagonized him a lot and mocked him and ridiculed him and attacked his credibility. He was my opponent, but I would never wish death upon him or anything like that. And Charlie Kirk never had a kind word to say about me in his life. Now that he has died, I'll say some kind words about him. Although I didn't agree with him, I considered him a part of the political establishment. In many ways, I considered him part of the problem. In spite of that, it is undeniable that he was a towering figure in American conservatism. It's undeniable. He was ambitious. He was a hard worker. He did things I cannot do. A lot of people said after his passing, I saw some people make oblique references to it. They said, well, if Charlie Kirk was assassinated, now the far right will step up. I don't know that there's anyone that could fill his shoes. I don't know that there's anyone that can do what he did. He died at 31 years old and left a legacy that many people could not achieve in many lifetimes. He hosted a show 3 hours a day. He went and faced down his enemies in debate. He would take on almost any challengers. I say almost because he wouldn't debate me, of course, but nevertheless, would debate anybody, anywhere, stare them down, and people don't know how difficult that is. He would sit there for hours on any subject, and then he would return home from the command center and direct the largest youth organization, the most ambitious project in conservative politics maybe ever, and he did it all before the age of 31. An absolutely brilliant, sharp, fierce warrior for his values and his beliefs. And as I said, I disagreed with them strongly. I'll make no bones about that, and that hasn't changed. But you have to admire that this was a fighter, this was a worker, this was a champion, and above all else, maybe this is what I respected about him the most. We had our disagreements. Where we did agree is that he would go to these college campuses and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, that is why he was killed. Everyone will be persecuted for the sake of Jesus Christ. Anyone, everyone, fighting and winning that spiritual battle for Christ and for his kingdom will be persecuted for his sake. And I don't believe Charlie Kirk was any different. We disagreed on much, but we agreed about abortion. We agreed about feminism. We agreed about many of the other moral, social ills of the country. And when you look at his most vicious detractors, the people celebrating his death now, possibly, probably, the gunmen that killed him They hated him because of his defense of Christian morality. He wasn't killed necessarily, perhaps, by a socialist or by someone who disagreed about his position on fiscal policy. And this is something I think we all need to take into account, something we need to be aware of and notice. The most vicious, hateful opponents of the conservative movement of all stripes, they are the ones championing transgenderism, which goes by another name, mutilation of the body, a disordering of the soul. It's the proponents of abortion, which is some form of child sacrifice, at the minimum, infanticide. These are the most vicious, violent, hateful detractors of even a moderate conservative like Charlie Kirk because he stood up for those biblical values. I'll say it better, Christian values, Christian morality, for Christ himself, for the truth incarnate. And for that, I consider him a true martyr. And I hope his reward is in heaven. I'll also say he was clearly a loving father, a loving husband. He was beloved by millions of people, that is obvious. And although I do not count myself among his fans, it was clear that millions upon millions of decent, earnest, good people, Christians, patriots, they did love him. And he belongs to them. And out of respect for them, I say that Charlie Kirk was a good man. God bless him. And despite our differences, our past debates, I consider that over. And I pray for the repose of his soul, for his family, for him. That's Charlie Kirk. Now, aside from that, it's important to say that it's obviously a horrific thing. And I think that what is so striking about it is because it became so real in that moment. It was such a graphic video. This is somebody that we felt like we all knew. I never met him. I never shook his hand. I never spoke with him. I saw him, and I've been at arm's length with him before, but I never knew him. But to us, he was imminent. He was ubiquitous. He was all over TikTok, making content. He was synonymous with campus conservatism. And like many personalities, politicians, the kind of medium that he used, social media, live streaming, we all developed a parasocial relationship with him. And whether we loved him or we hated him, he was known to us. And other people that we know die, but they die in hospitals or they die when we're not looking. He was publicly executed, suddenly, unexpectedly, in front of millions of people on camera. And we saw in graphic detail his life end that way. I think that's why this is having such a profound effect on people. And the reason that it has shaken everybody to their core, and in some ways, unconscionably has become divisive somehow, is because there are a lot of decent people still left in this country. And maybe they're right wing and maybe they're left wing and maybe they voted for Trump and maybe they didn't. But in that moment, when they saw this young man, this young father, this young husband, a good man, a congenial, by every metric, a positive, cheerful person, a generative person, someone who loved America, fought for what he believed in, a disciplined person, did not indulge in vices, a family man, to see someone like this gunned down in cold blood in such a cowardly act from such a distance like that. In that moment, what was confusing before about our country, what was divisive before, where there was moral confusion or obfuscation, there was clarity. And I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your politics are. People, white and black, men and women, feminists, conservatives, people that are straight, people that are gay. I saw across Instagram, TikTok, a good deal of people, I hope the majority in this country, were shaken to their core because they saw true evil. When the assassin's bullet cracked and the shot rang out and people saw this young, good man die for no good reason, someone knowable to us. Every decent person that still has a conscience, and I choose to use that word, everyone with a conscience was able to say clearly, that is evil, that is wrong. It is wrong to violate the sanctity of life in that way. Our lives are not our own. We belong to each other. We belong to God. We did not create ourselves. We belong to our Creator. To see another human being, I don't care what they've said in the past. I don't care what their opinions are. To see someone summarily executed in such a brutal way like that, there was a moment of clarity where people saw, and this is an all too familiar sight, people saw evil, and it shocked them to their core. People saw true evil, weakness, cowardice, violence, hatred, taking away someone who loved and was loved for no reason, unjustly. And people reacted with sorrow, outrage, anger, made people sick. It shook people up because we were born with a moral law written on our hearts. It's not just written in the Gospels. It's not just written in the lives of the saints. It's also written on our hearts. We know right from wrong. We know it when we see it. We feel it. We feel it on a deeper level. It makes us physiologically sick to see it. I think that's why it had such a profound impact. And the reason that it has people so shaken up, another reason, as I said before, is because this is the middle of a very long story. As we all know, this did not come out of nowhere. There were many events that precipitated this. We can talk about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last year when he was shot in the ear, and his display of strength, of courage, in the face of a cowardly attack, inspired millions of people, billions of people around the world. They saw that little twerp, that coward that climbed up on the roof and took a shot. And they saw Trump in that moment who had nothing on his mind other than that he needed to reassure his people, show them he was not defeated or deterred. He rose up and raised his fist, rallied the people to the side of strength, of goodness, of righteousness. He survived by the grace of God. We saw it when Luigi Mangione gunned down the healthcare CEO months later. And like the attack on Charlie Kirk yesterday, the attack by Luigi Mangione was another chain reaction. In that moment, we saw a young man kill a father, a husband, another innocent. Once again, people say he worked for some company, he worked for an evil industry. Shot in cold blood, no trial, no charge. His life was not Luigi Mangione's to take. And for some reason, this divided the country. There were millions of people that said he was a hero, treated him like a sex icon, a champion. They made T-shirts. They celebrated. Is anybody surprised now that you have incidents like this? Is anybody the least bit surprised? In a culture where mass murder and murder is celebrated, people cheer it on, they lionize cowardly assassins and killers. Is anybody the least bit surprised that it inspired a copycat? It inspired another? It shouldn't come as a surprise. But there's other echoes of the violence that we saw yesterday. We saw it imminently just the other week when that young girl, the Ukrainian refugee, was stabbed to death on the train. We saw it when Austin Metcalf was stabbed in the throat at a football practice. We see it in Gaza for years when innocent people are shot in the back of the head getting food for their children because they're starving. The weight of the suffering, the cruelty, the malice, the hatred, it's becoming too much to bear. I think that's the real reason. because we've seen violence before. We've seen horrible atrocities before. We've seen school shootings, terrorist attacks. But we all recognize we live in a time of nihilistic violence. And it's coming from all sides. Nihilistic violence perpetrated by barbarians, like these opportunists and predators, these young, mostly adolescent black men that are preying upon the innocent and the vulnerable on city subways, city streets. We see it in the barbarism, the predatory, opportunistic attacks, executions, random, cruel acts of violence. We see it in Zionism. Dare I say, in a certain strain of the Jewish religion, which says that the people of Palestine are collectively responsible for the actions of Hamas. None of them are innocent. They all must die. And sitting members of Congress like Randy Fine celebrates famine, starving women and children, 1 million people under the age of 18 being blown to smithereens, being starved forcibly. We see it in another form, which is leftism. Communists, anarchists. There is a certain strain of radical transsexuals. For them, everything is political. Everything is ideological. All this propaganda that's got them whipped up about fascism, a trans genocide, about the healthcare system. They believe the meaning of life is a political struggle, a political victory. And so they have no love, no charity towards their opponents. These are the different strains of nihilistic violence coming from all angles that we've seen. And notice it comes from everywhere. It comes from the political left. And by the political left, I don't mean every Democrat. I don't mean every liberal. I don't mean every Kamala voter. I mean a specific sect of the radical left that recognizes no limiting principles. We see that kind of nihilistic violence from a certain crowd of Jewish Zionists and their allies. Some evangelical Christians, atheistic Jews that are sympathetic, that wield immense influence in our government, and they want to wield our military against their adversaries. And we see it in the barbarians. We see it in the unthinking, primitive, backwards, regressive, you could say, undeveloped masses of people in other unenlightened parts of the world that are coming here and visiting the savagery upon us. And if there is anything that can come out of this, I hope that it can be potentially a new consensus. This is not partisan, actually. It's not even ideological. People do not murder children in a Catholic church because they have gender dysphoria necessarily, or they're sympathetic to transsexuals. Somebody does not murder Charlie Kirk because they voted for Kamala Harris. People do not stab young girls on trains because they're born black. People do not shoot Palestinians in the back of the head or cheer it on just because they're Jewish. The people that do this are lost. They have to be isolated and segregated out. A new consensus must emerge. Are you in favor of a society with meaning? A society where life is sacred, where life has sanctity, where people's lives and their dignity and their integrity is respected? Or are we going to live in a society that is a never-ending war between nihilistic tribes, warlords, savages, pagans? I see an emerging consensus, and I think that the mature people that actually love America, actually love our children, the people that recognize the division, the peril that we're in, we need to fortify a new consensus and rally the people of conscience, the people of decency, the people of humanity, the people of charity towards their fellow man, against those that want to kill us, against those that laugh and celebrate when innocent people are harmed. For any reason, for any ideological reason, against the people that are cruel, the people that are hateful. And by that, I mean the people that are really cruel, not the people that say things you disagree with, not the people that are provocative, not the people that are sometimes angry, but the people that are really cruel and really evil. And let me be clear about this, because I understand not a lot of people are loving this message right now. This is not the message that a lot of people want to hear right now. Here's another message you can try on for size. These people that are now selling t-shirts with Charlie Kirk and a bullet wound in his neck, they cannot be negotiated with. You cannot debate with them. You cannot persuade them to vote Republican. You cannot appeal to them. You will never convince them that you're a good person, that you just want the best for everybody. You will never get them to stop hating you. People like to say, well, can the left finally admit that they have their own problem? They'll never admit that. They'll never admit that. These craven losers, that person that when Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck, instinctually got up and turned and celebrated, they have to be defeated. We can't change their minds. We can't invite them to change our minds. We can't negotiate with them. We can't invite them for a political compromise. If your gut reaction to seeing someone take a bullet in the neck and their face explode, and their young children run up to them because they were afraid of the noise, if your reaction was to grin and celebrate, you must be defeated. You must be destroyed. You must be identified, you must be isolated, and you must be eradicated from our society. Not Democrats, not leftists, not liberals, those people that would celebrate in that moment. That is pure evil, pure malice. There is no charity in a person's heart. I don't care who it is who sees anybody get their neck exploded and celebrate like that. That's the kind of evil we're dealing with. That's the kind of evil that has taken over our society. It has become too common. People have let it fester. Like with Luigi Mangione, they thought it was cute. They thought it was glib. And look at what we have now. We are on the verge of full-on political violence and civil war. I don't think people realize what that looks like. There's going to be a lot of children without mothers and fathers, a lot of mothers and fathers grieving their dead children. I don't want that. Nobody should want that. But when it comes to evil people, cowardly, weak, evil people that snipe at Trump, at Charlie Kirk, like the gunman that came to my house last year, unfortunately, it's not always up to us which battles we fight. When they show up to your front door, when they take shots at the rally, at the Change My Mind, we don't have a choice. We have to confront evil. We have to fight evil. We can never give in to evil, and we have to win. Recognize this. If these people ever get power over us, these people that celebrate, they sell t-shirts, they steal hats when a man is lying dead, they will hurt you. They will hurt your children, and they will destroy everything that is sacred to us, everything that we love, and they will do it with a smile. They're already doing it. They have done it. They're telling on themselves. And Sam Hyde said it very well. All their cutesy language, their word games, their sarcasm, their irony, it is dripping with malevolence, dripping with contempt. dripping with malevolence and malice. And if these people ever win, we will all suffer the same fate as Charlie Kirk. They have to be defeated utterly and fundamentally. Now, this is not a call to violence, because taking up arms against these people, what will that do? It will invite more of it. The Satanists, the devil worshipers, the malevolent people that do these things, in part, they do it to stoke resentment, to stoke conflict. They take the things that we love away from us so that we will abandon God, so that we will become like them. That is, whether they know it or not, that is why they do it. That is why they are impelled to do it by spiritual, supernatural forces. I believe that. Do not mistake what I mean by defeat them. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. But I want to make that clear right now. This is not a call for violence. Here is what I will say about left-wingers, because a lot of left-wing people reached out to me and they told me, you have a responsibility. They said, we're afraid right now. They said, you need to lead people away from violence. I agree with them. But where was that mentality when someone showed up at my house with a gun and failed? Those people are not reaching out then. Where was that mentality throughout all of the persecutions, all the suffering? Now, this is speaking from a place of resentment. They're afraid. They're afraid that the right is going to punch back 1,000 times as hard. And we could, and we can. And I fear that some might. And I hope to God that they don't. In some sense, the right to be afraid, we should all be afraid that something we cannot control may happen. Here is what I will say to those people. I and Charlie Kirk for years pushed a peaceful resolution. We invited the left to debate, negotiate. We played within the system. When Obama told us, you got to win elections, we tried that. And look at what they did to Trump. They shot him in the head. We tried to do it your way. We tried to debate, to go to the polls, the voting booth. People ran for office, and what did they encounter? Intimidation, menacing, harassment, slander, lies, assassination attempts, and successes. Now the left says we need to bring down the temperature. Here is what I would say to the left. The left now has an obligation. You can turn down the temperature. The left in America now, everybody in America now must come together and disavow this nihilistic, malevolent violence. You all have an obligation. I have that obligation, and I think I have done it. I condemn the violence, all of it, all of the nihilistic violence, whether it comes from the far right, the far left, whether it comes from a Dylan Roof, the Buffalo shooter, or someone like this. It's your job too. You must condemn it loudly, loud enough that we can hear it, and you have to mean it. And I think of somebody like Hassan Piker, such a hollow, empty, sad person. Hassan Piker saw Charlie Kirk, someone that he knew, get shot in the neck and his neck erupt with blood. We don't need to be graphic about the details, but everybody should look at that long and hard and let it sit with you. When Hassan saw that, his first reaction was to make a glib remark about gun control. Seriously? That's a 31-year-old man. That's a young man with a wife and kids. He got shot in cold blood, publicly executed in front of thousands of college students. Never forget the trauma of his children, of his family. What about the people that witnessed this? What about everybody that will be affected by the knock-on violence that results from this? And you hollow, sick person, your response is to make some glib remark about gun control? Fuck you. Fuck you. And here's my message to Hassan Piker and every liberal cocksucker like him. You better disavow this violence. You better cry like Dean Withers. And I don't say that, maybe that comes off like I'm humiliating him. Who knows whether that was sincere or not? I hope to God that it was. And if it was, you know what? Good on him. That's a good kid. And he said some nasty things about me. That's a kid with a conscience. He said, I don't think we should kill people for disagreeing. Is that divisive now? He had to apologize for weeping that someone he knew was murdered. That kid has a conscience. I have some faith in that generation. Here's my message to Hassan and all these smug, glib liberals like that. If you cannot, if you will not disavow this violence, we will have no choice but to consider you as no different than the killers. That's complicity. You could be forgiven up until this point for being irresponsible. We all get heated. We all do it. I'm guilty of it too. It makes hypocrites of all of us. We murder each other with our words all the time, with our gossip, our slander. We overreact. We say things we don't mean. We get angry. We harbor grudges and resentment, things that we should not. And that's not to excuse it. But the day that someone gets shot for the disagreement, if you can't bring yourself to show the slightest ounce of humanity to a moderate Republican who got killed for no reason, this is a moment we all recognize could set us down the path towards a civil war, could set us down the path towards unbelievable horror, suffering, bloodshed. If you can't bring yourself, even for the selfish sake of yourself or your own people or your own pathetic side, to show the slightest ounce of humility, of mercy, of magnanimity, benevolence, charity, then you are no better than the killer. And that means that you must be destroyed politically as well. That's not a call to violence. But people like that have to be suppressed. They should be censored on the internet. They need to be named and shamed. And this is where I say, what does victory look like? Here's what it looks like in the short term. This is a very delicate situation. This is a very delicate situation. I fear that this has set off a chain reaction. I pray to God there is no further violence. I pray to God that nobody else is hurt as a result of this. I hope that it stops here. It should stop here. To all of my followers, if you take up arms, I disavow you, I disown you in the strongest possible terms. That is not what we are about. And the same goes obviously for the other side. And I want to make that very clear. It would be a profound moral, political mistake for anybody to take the bait and to engage in any kind of reprisal, retaliation, revenge. Remember, we are the good side. And what makes us good is that we have Christ. What makes Christianity and Christ so different from the other religions is that our religion is based on the bearing of suffering for the sake of even those that persecute us. An overflowing of love, an overflowing of self-giving love, so much of it cannot be contained. An unconditional, absolute standard of love for all of God's children, even those that are misguided, even those that persecute us, even the most heinous among us. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us good. You think you're good? You're not. You are not good. I am not good. You are a man. I am a man. You are a sinner. I am a sinner. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot save this world. God can save us. God can save the world. And God saves us and God saves the world by drawing all of us up onto the cross with him. And we join not just in his glory, but in his suffering. Real suffering, not imaginary, not a nice story, real suffering, real death, real destruction, real misery. We bear a cross like Christ bears a cross, like his disciples, like the martyrs, like the saints bear a cross. And you better get comfortable up there. Drink up. And you bear that cross, not for your kin, not for yourself, not for your children, which are an extension of yourself. You bear that cross and that suffering. You drink from that chalice for your enemies, for those that persecute you, for those that hate you, for the sake of Christ. That doesn't mean we let them hurt us. It doesn't mean we let them take over our country. But it does mean that we do not lower ourselves to their level. It does mean that we do not resort to our own powers, our own machinations, our own plans, our own pride, with vengeance, with retaliation. Vengeance belongs to God. God is both merciful and just. And no one can say they have faith in God if they do not have faith in God's perfect justice, which we cannot understand, which is hard to accept, sometimes impossible. But that's what it is to be a Christian. That's what it was like to be the first Christians, to watch God himself nailed to a cross for the sake of everyone. You cannot tell me you have faith in God if you don't have faith that all of those people that seek to hurt us will ultimately meet their divinely appointed justice at God's hands, but not our own. Those lives are not ours to take. Now, in the meantime, how do we defeat these people so that they cannot hurt us? We have a right to exist. We have a right to defend ourselves. And this is going to be a consistent theme here. The first thing that we need to do, and everybody needs to be on the same page here, right, left, middle, I am calling on everybody. Today we are all Americans. Today we are all Christians in that we want the cycle of retributive vengeance and violence to stop. In that sense, today, we are all Christians, whether culturally, religiously, we are all Americans. We all want to see our country pull through. We all want to see our loved ones survive. Liberal or conservative, we all want to be around for the next Christmas. We all want to see our children graduate college in the spring. I'm calling on everybody. We all have a place in this. Everybody must condemn this violence. You don't need to condemn Kamala Harris. You don't need to condemn liberalism. You don't need to condemn whatever issue it is. You must condemn the violence at the minimum. The nihilistic violence has to stop. And today I would stand like any other day, shoulder to shoulder with any one of my enemies, any one of them. Anybody that ordinarily they would think I would find them disgusting. You know, somebody who I least expected. I'm not even going to say who it is. You would not believe. Somebody hits me up and says, I'm the exact kind of person you would absolutely hate. I don't hate anybody. But that person, all these people have to be joined up for the sake of America, for the sake of humanity, and say we disavow the nihilistic violence. It is intolerable in our society. It must be absolutely suppressed, suffocated. It has to be snuffed out. The light has to defeat the darkness the day after this death. The left, the right, everybody must say, this has to stop. It should be an easy bar to clear. And for those that don't, I think I speak for everybody when I say, for the people that are interrupting the vigils for the young man who was killed and yelling, fuck Charlie Kirk, for the people that are selling t-shirts, mocking his execution, for the people that are saying he deserved it for some such other reason, these people must be ostracized from our society. We must identify them. We must have them fired from their jobs. They must be censored on social media. There must be a cost. Because if there isn't, this will continue. If there isn't, their ridicule, their provocations, their antagonism, it will provoke more violence. It will spawn, it will generate more violence. Copycats. Those people must be named, they must be shamed publicly, they must be penalized. Don't hurt them, don't give them the satisfaction, don't make them martyrs, don't stoop to their level. But that guy who laughed when Charlie Kirk was shot, this guy needs to answer for why he did that. This guy should not be able to find a living. This guy should not be able to find harbor. Let him crawl on his belly across this country, finding no refuge. Because people that are complicit in evil like that do not belong in a decent society. That black individual that jumped over the fence and started stealing MAGA hats while Charlie Kirk was dead in an ambulance or in an SUV, that guy needs to be named and shamed too. Is nothing sacred? Does anything matter? Is there any humanity? How dare you? How dare you? We will not, cannot live in a society with people like that. Somebody like that needs to be named and shamed. They must hang their head in shame until there is some repentance on their side. Fortunately, our religion believes in forgiveness. But there must be a penance here. You have to say you're sorry. You have to be penalized in some way. This cannot go unanswered anymore. That's what happened when Luigi Mangione killed that guy. That's what happened when Trump got shot and everybody made fun of it. How many more times does it have to happen? Everybody is accountable to say this does not have a place in our society, and we must shame the people that think this is okay. This is not okay. And if you think it is, what kind of society are we going to live in? Is that how we solve our problems? We kill each other? Well, but Charlie Kirk said this. Okay, well, we disagree with you. Should we go and shoot you in your house? What is our country going to become? Who's going to run our country? The toughest warlord? Where do you think that goes? This is how you solve problems? You get a gun like a coward and sneak up behind someone and shoot him in the head? And then what? They don't like you, so they're going to do it to you and you do it back? And pretty soon we have a country that's run by warlords. We have rule by the most brutal, the most cruel, the most malevolent. Nobody wins in a society like that. After millions of corpses are stacked up, we will be ruled by the most brutal tyrant you could ever imagine. Is that the kind of society you want to live in? That's where this is headed. Obviously. And in some sense, the left is right to be scared because the right is more proficient in violence. The left is more willing, the right is more capable. What do you think happens in a civil war? You already see the cruelty of some people on the right. You know, I'm sure there are people on the left that are saying, is this really what the left needs? Is another transsexual or pro-liberal someone bringing down heat on all of them? Oh, good luck. You know, it's like the Dark Knight. You're telling me that Donald Trump is a billionaire who's also secretly a fascist, racist, empowered by Palantir and AI surveillance. and your job is to dare that administration to create tyranny, and not to sound glib or whatever, but this is what we're talking about. So there must be a new consensus that this kind of inhuman, uncharitable, hateful nihilism, it has to be the scourge of our society. We have to do our part to drive it out. And you know what the best way to do that is, other than the obvious, which I already see people doing, and you know what? Good. I see people getting these people fired. I see people holding these people accountable, and good on them. Our strongest weapon is to shine. Our strongest weapon, if you, as I said, really believe in God, it's not a gun. It's not some other weapon of choice. Our strongest weapon is the power of prayer. And I know that's taken a lot of heat. I know there's a lot of cynical, arrogant people that think they know better. They say thoughts and prayers. When you put your intentions and your consciousness and your conscience in alignment with the true and living God, the God of mercy, the God that is synonymous with love, the God that is synonymous with truth and charity, it will shine through your actions. It will shine through your words and your deeds. And it will shine for others to follow. It will shine for other people that are misguided, other people that are confused, other people that may be considering evil things. Everybody's looking for some tyrant to save us. People are looking for a militia to save us. They're looking for a militant Messiah to deliver us from our enemies so that we can rule and things can be the way we want them to be. But that Messiah already came. His kingdom is within. His kingdom is above, outside of this. You want to make society better? It starts with you. And the cardinal sin, the first mistake you can make is to think that in a fundamental way, in an essential way, that we're different from the people that hate us. It's not to say that we're killers. It doesn't make us killers. But we have a fallen nature. We have a tendency to love ourselves. We have a tendency to believe in ourselves. We're prone to the appetites of the flesh, the emotions, anima, supernatural forces. If you don't want that to win, you must resolve in your heart first what side you're on in the spiritual battle. Are you on the side of God? Talk to God. Pray to God. Give your intentions to God. Align your will with God. That's how you know you're on the right side and not on the side of... If you're out there thinking about revenge and talking tough and war and all this stuff, I would say think again. Now, here's the other part. We are in a civilizational struggle. People say, obviously, we're in peril. We have a real problem on our hands. We are besieged from every corner by the devil and by the devil's allies. As I said, by this elite syndicate which runs our country. It runs off of drug money. It runs off of violence and terrorism. It supports heinous wars and bloodshed like in Palestine. We're also besieged not just from above, but from below, by barbarians, by a primitive form of evil, by bandits, savages, murderers. You see it all the time, like we saw last week. You see it from our ideological opponents, from people in the middle, intellectuals, academics, these arrogant intellectuals, chortling, all have to be defeated. They will not be defeated by be defeated today, tomorrow. People say, what are we going to do? We got to get out there. How did Christ win the victory over the Roman Empire? How did Christ's church grow from 12 to millions to take over the ancient known world. They didn't expand by the sword. They didn't expand by conquest. It was by the witness to their true faith, witness to their suffering. When the Roman soldiers came to arrest Christ, the first instinct of his disciples was to defend Christ, to attack. And Christ quickly admonished his disciple Peter and said, "Those that live by the sword perish by the sword. Trade your sword for a cloak. Be as clever as a serpent and as innocent as a dove." This is my message. Every young adolescent man watching this, everybody whipped up, boomers too, boomer waffin that's out there, every person that is outraged by this, every person that wants change, I give you the same message. Trade your arms for a cloak. Be as clever as a serpent, as innocent as a dove. Write your interior life. Write your conscience. Put your conscience and your attentions in alignment with God. Be as innocent as you can be. Try your best to live a moral life. But don't be stupid. Don't be naive. With Charlie Kirk's death, his Turning Point organization, the fate of it is uncertain. Charlie Kirk, I'm going to be honest with you, I saw him as an establishment figure. I saw him as too moderate. We must fill up the ranks of these campus organizations with Septemberists. Forget about the free market. Forget about pro-Israel, free market, whatever. It is incumbent on all adolescent young men that want to save this country, that want any future for your children, that want to preserve what your ancestors built, to get involved in politics and to do more. And when I say politics, do not mistake what I mean. I don't mean go and vote for more Republicans to bomb Palestine. I do not mean to vote for more Republicans to cover up the Epstein files. Vote for more Republicans to squander and botch something like this so badly as they have. I mean, you need to become a human Swiss Army knife. Become unkillable. I'm not this guy, but get in the gym. Get in the gym. Do tactical training. Become hard to kill so you can protect yourself and your family. Learn the rules of the game and use them to your advantage. Get involved in politics. Get involved in a campus organization tomorrow. Get involved in a campaign, not with the mind towards I'm going to put up stickers, not with a mind towards we're going to get the vote, with a mind towards we are in this struggle until we die by any means. We are in this struggle for the long haul. Until we win, none of us are safe. None of our families are safe. We will keep being attacked. Get used to it. You'll see more of it. I hope we don't. I pray that we don't, but we will. Get involved for the people that can't, for the people that aren't with us, for the people that aren't able. Start your career now so that one day you can be in a position of real power, real money, real influence, real government power. And not today, not tomorrow, because listen, that's not how these things happen. Rome is not built in a day. This kind of societal change, people that are looking for a quick fix, what are we going to do? You're not going to like the answer, because it is not that we are going to go out in some climactic, ecstatic, orgiastic, violent action like a movie. That never delivers change. It never delivers anything good. What does deliver real change is the thankless, monotonous, boring task, the oftentimes not very rewarding task of going in, day out, and dealing with logistical problems and frustrations and fighting every day so that we can be in charge, so that we can protect our country, our inheritance, and all people. That's the solution. That's my call on all people. In the short term, this scourge in our society, it must be driven out. It must be suffocated by goodness. They must be shamed, not hurt, not injured, not maimed, but they must be shamed. They must be ostracized. We cannot associate with these people anymore. And a more voluntary action is you need to get involved. This is the call to action that you're not going to like. Sadly, and I've been around for a long time and I've seen it, and you may not believe me, I've seen enough of these instances. You know how this goes. Everybody's paying attention now because they saw the gory video. Everyone's in their feelings because they saw video edits and productions with music on them on TikTok. But in 2 weeks, everybody's going to be right back to their regular old lives. You know that. That's the best case scenario. Everybody's going to be right back to their ordinary lives. In a year, sadly, I hate to say this, and we won't let them forget, but many will forget. Many people need to be reminded. And that's typically how these things go. Use the anger. Use the emotions you're feeling now, not to ruin your life, not to say something reckless, do something you regret, not to say something just as murderous as what happened or do something just as evil as what occurred. Take these emotions, transmute them. Align your intentions with God. Use it for a righteous cause. Use it to get involved in a generational struggle. This is not me telling you not to act. On the contrary, dedicate your life to this. Dedicate your life to taking over our country to deliver a real victory. There is no substitute. There is no alternative. They must lose. We must win. They must be defeated. Ultimately, we must win. We must control the halls of power. We must control the big guns. We must control society for the good of us, our families, for the good of our enemies, for their own good, for the good of the children that have grown up and been misguided and corrupted by the devil and his allies to become this, to become monsters, for the good of us all. That is our responsibility. That's my message. Do with it what you will. We're not going to read super chats tonight. What happened yesterday cannot be undone. And a word on life and death. Here's the thing. There's only one way out of this world. Major reason this was so disturbing, so depressing, is because we saw it right up close and personal. And here's the thing about death. It's not pretty. It's not glorious. It's not triumphant. No one is triumphant in their death other than Christ. We die weak, feeble, mentally, physically incapacitated, violently. You see how fragile life really is. A bullet rips through your neck, it's over in an instant. How fragile the balance between life and death really is. How short and unpredictable life really is. We have plans. We have schedules, routines. We have a fate, an appointed day when we will be sentenced to death one way or another. Somehow, eventually, it will take us by surprise. And then we'll spend eternity in heaven or hell. Remember that you will die. Like Charlie Kirk, you and I will die. Charlie Kirk had plans. We all have plans. We all have plans to live to be 95 years old, retired with our family on our side, dying of old age peacefully in our sleep. That's not promised. None of it. None of it is promised. Not our bodies, not our faculties, not our cognitive capabilities, not 50 years, not tomorrow, not today, not tonight. Do with that information what you will. Live as though if you died at any moment, you'll be satisfied with it. And what do we take with us in death? We don't take any of it. Not our bodies, not our wealth, as you know, our esteem, our credibility, our victories. All of it eventually be washed away by time and by eternity. What you take with you to the judgment are your deeds. What is melted down At the end of your life is your actions. And they will be melted down like metals. And they will be gold, silver, bronze, copper. They will be judged accordingly to their weight, to their kind, to their type. What did you do? Did you do the right thing? Did you tell the truth? Did you sacrifice as Christ did? Did you do these things as Christ did? In the end, that is all that you take with you, and it is worth its weight in gold, literally. People get so caught up, they're so worried about strategy, machinations, even the fate of our people here in this world. But the world is passing. We are passing. We are mortal. And all these people that see Charlie Kirk, and I get it, people are beating their chest. They don't want to be deterred. They don't want to be defeated. Let it be a reminder. We all die. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We're all going that way. And the least that you could say about Charlie Kirk is that he died professing a faith in God. He died professing the truth. Let us be so lucky, in a way. I don't count him as lucky. It's a horrible tragedy. Years taken, memories, but ultimately martyred for the sake of the truth, for the sake of mercy, for the sake of the unborn, for the sake of children affected by all these diabolical, perverse things. He will receive a handsome reward in heaven for it. May he rest in peace. God bless Charlie Kirk, his family, his daughters, everybody, his enemies, his friends, everybody in the country. Let us truly see each other as children of God. Let us all see God in everybody. Let's be charitable towards one another in our words and our actions. Let's be slow to anger. And I know it's rich for me to say that. I'm a very volatile person. Let us be slow to be angry, wrathful, vengeful, judgmental. Let's try to be kind, compassionate, understanding. But at the same time, let us be strong, tough, clever when we need to be. Let us defend the people we love from those that are trying to hurt us. And God, give us the strength, the prudence, the perseverance to defeat this evil with some finality in our lifetimes. And it may be a long time, but let us see it through to the end for the sake of everybody. That's Charlie Kirk. So God bless him. Rest in peace. And I hope you'll take this message to heart. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there and they're going to say, we need extremism. We need violence. We need to take matters in our own hands. Do not listen to them. Do not listen to the diabolical. Resist the temptation. That's my final admonition to all of you. But that's all I have for you. That's my show. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. And I do take seriously my role. I don't want to say anything inappropriate. It's not necessarily about me, but at this point, it's unignorable. It's been thrusted upon me. As you know, throughout my time doing this, I have been dismissed, attacked. You know, I had an article written about me the other day. They described me as a mosquito. I recognize that I have an obligation now to be serious. I recognize that I, and so many of you too, we have to be leaders. And what it means to lead, not only to lead by example, but it also means to resist our worst inclinations for the sake of the common good. Not what feels right, not what feels good for us in the moment, not what satisfies our anger, but what is truly best. It takes vision. It takes courage. It takes prudence. It takes leadership. We need people to grow up. We need people to fill in to that role. And I hope that people watching the show will do that. I hope people heed my warning. And I pray for the country. So, God bless Charlie Kirk. God bless all of you, our country. And I will see you on Monday. I don't think I'll do a show tomorrow. I think I'll be back on Monday. So that's all I have for you. Be safe out there. Protect everybody. Be vigilant. These are some scary and disturbing times. But I will see you later, everybody. Signing off. Let me awkwardly produce this ending here. God bless everybody. I will see you next week. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next week. God bless.
So obviously this is a heavy one, to say the least. Definitely a heavy one. Spoke about it briefly on the video that we put out yesterday, and didn't put anything out on Wednesday when it happened, just because really had no urgency to. And it's funny because when all this is happening, I'm going on YouTube, seeing everybody go live, give their opinion. And, you know, to each their own, everybody deals with death differently. But I don't know. Let me put it this way. When I saw that Nick put up the X message, the X post, when I saw that Nick put up the X post, and I'll read it to you. Given the gratitude of today's events, I will not be doing a show tonight. Instead, let us all say a prayer for the repose of Charlie Kirk's soul and for his grieving family. How we choose to respond to this watershed moment is profoundly important, and we should all sleep on it. I didn't feel the need to say anything. Like, I was just really just taken back and just said, damn. You know, this is another reminder that life is short. It's another reminder that you can be killed for voicing your opinion on certain things. Political violence. Not to say that this violence is different than other violence. Well, I will say that I think it is different. You know, based on what you're being killed for. And it sounds crazy to say. It's like, this is politics. We're supposed to be able to exchange opinions. This is not gang violence. This is not, I mean, they're all senseless killings. And I hate to say that one weighs heavier than the other, but this one, I'm just being totally honest, it hits. And this may be the thing, because I saw a lot of people that reacted in an insensitive way, in my opinion. And they were saying how they couldn't be empathetic or sympathetic. And it's just like, damn. And I realized that a lot of people have never taken the risk of going out there and speaking up for something that you know that you're going to get a lot of hate for. And it's the unpopular opinion, even within your own group a lot of times. And when you've done that, and when you've had those conversations with your family, and it's like, hey, are you sure you want to talk about these things? You're risking a lot. Could be career, could be well-being. When you've actually done these things, you see incidents like this, tragedies like this, a lot differently. I don't have to agree with anything that Charlie said for me to look at this and be like, dang, he was simply speaking his mind. He wasn't committing crimes. And if I sit back and don't have empathy for somebody who was killed because they were just speaking their mind, like, what does that say about me? I don't think that if somebody just disagrees with things that I'm saying, or they may find it even offensive at certain times, that justifies them being able to take up arms and the world, society, not feeling empathy or not having any understanding and sympathy for my situation just because we had different perspectives. It doesn't matter how, quote unquote, insensitive, or maybe it does matter. For a lot of people, I guess they're saying something else, but I'm not even going to focus on that. Let me kind of just get back to what Nick was discussing. I thought he handled this beautifully. I have a few takeaways that I made notes on while he was talking, and it's crazy how we've normalized a lot of this stuff, or how we've allowed it to become normalized. I saw somebody write on Instagram that it shouldn't be normal to just scroll through your social media and see somebody's head being blown off or neck exploded. That shouldn't be normalized. And we should never see that as something that is normalized. But I guess it's just another one of those things in a long line of list of things that we become comfortable with and normalize because we don't address it. We don't take a stand on it, and it ends up showing up in front of our face. And Nick talked a lot about this nihilistic violence. It was a term that I wasn't familiar with, I'm gonna be totally honest, and I had to look it up. And it says nihilistic violence refers to random destructive acts that are not driven by ideology, but by a sense of meaningless and existential despair. Perpetrators are often motivated by deep misanthropy and a desire for notoriety, acting out of an inward-facing emotional need to inflict chaos or gain acceptance in online nihilistic communities. The violence is expressive and performative, aiming for maximum shock and virality rather than a specific political or social goal. Another form of senseless violence, just another form of it. You know what else it made me realize? That this goes to the earlier point, that you have a certain respect, you develop a certain respect. It's almost like two boxers or two MMA guys you see that hate each other. They can't stand each other. They say how the other is disrespectful, but then they get in the ring and they actually fight. They have it out. And then at the end of that fight, those guys have a respect that goes a long way for each other, a mutual respect. And that respect is different than what other people in their camps, their families, their friends may be able to feel for each other, because they weren't actively engaged. And it makes me think that even though I may be radically opposed to somebody, their stance, and even though I may not agree with the whole concept of radicalism, do not agree with it. I think that extremism, radicalism, when it comes to the political parties, it's definitely led to a lot of these type of things, in my opinion. And that's more aligned with us being used to be radical in ways that, in my opinion, are for somebody else's benefit. And when it comes to us, it's just to divide and conquer us. Now, I had to sit back and think, should we be obsessed and radical with the life that we want to live, with the positive values that we want to push out to the world? Can those also be seen as offensive to some? Perhaps. But it just, in my opinion, maybe this is a bit of a contradiction, or maybe I'm conveniently seeing it this way. But to me, I see it a bit differently, a lot differently, when someone is radically standing on their truth and not doing it for reasons, or I should say, and willing to do certain things that put themselves in harm's way because they believe in their truth so much, but not being used by somebody else to be radical. But to me, there's a difference when you actually stand on it and live by it, rather than just manipulating other people to do certain things that they don't live by. So I do see it as a bit of a difference. And sorry to be rambling on about that. Let me get back to the notes. But I was, like I said, I was impressed. To be able to talk about your biggest rival like this says a lot. Nick said certain things that I thought were very mature, especially when we remind ourselves that he just turned 27 years old, has a lot of weight on his shoulders, especially now with Charlie Kirk's passing. A lot of the young conservatives were either following Nick or following Charlie. So we'll see what he does with it. But I'm liking what I'm hearing so far. He said that people don't just do this because they're trans. People don't just do this because they're black, because they're Jewish, etc. They do it because they're lost. And people may take that as a bit different of a stance than Nick took previously. Even me, obviously being black, one of the things that always stands out to me is his conversation with Candace Owens, and whether or not this is black people are born a certain type of way compared to others being more violent or having less of an IQ. This to me just comes across differently. It's maturity. I don't know if this was a transformation. I don't know what it is, but I'm just looking at it. I'm just focusing on it, and I like the direction that he's navigating in right now. People don't just do this because they're trans, black, Jewish, etc. They do it because they're lost. We live in a lost society that preys on our lost people. Our society preys on our lost people. This is what I was talking about earlier when I see when it comes to a lot of the political manipulation of manipulating us into becoming extreme and radical without actually having to live the life that you're manipulating other people to live. Let's be obsessive in becoming better, more positive. It's so funny how we can be radical and extreme in all these other areas, but then when it comes to something like, yo, let's try to live in peace and harmony. Oh, that's just, you're living in a fantasy world. You're living in. So it's okay to be radical and extreme in all these other crazy areas that we're radical and extreme in. Look around at society. Things have gotten radical and extreme, to say the least. It's okay for the energy to be directed that way, but not for us to direct it in a positive way. We're lost. We're living in a lost society. And we have to be very careful and responsible with our leadership and influence, because when we understand that a lot of the people that we speak to are lost, are just hanging on to that by a thread, just holding it together, ready to crash out, ready to break at any moment. A lot of people are living like that. And we all have the responsibility to make sure that we're using our influence to give them more of a grip, to put more positivity in their life, to put more faith in their life, rather than encouraging them, like Nick referred to in the last show, like a Matt Walsh type. Just got to call it out how I call it out. And I haven't seen how Matt Walsh responds to this. I haven't even looked. But responding in a way, and Nick even said that he's responded in ways that weren't the most mature. But we have to make sure that we're doing a good job of policing ourselves, holding ourselves responsible. Because when we see and understand that a lot of people in this society are hopeless, are godless, have no plans, feel purposeless, we can provoke them to do things that they otherwise would see as crazy. So we got to do better, and we got to take it upon ourselves to do better. Nick made it very clear over and over, this is not a call for violence. He said, I disavow you if you take up arms, period. And when I think back to Nick's last show, where he was talking about the guy on the train that killed the young lady, and he was saying how, and he actually said this a few different times. And like I said before, I've only really listened to Nick for the last 3 weeks, 3 weeks. But I've heard him say and get into arguments with a lot of his followers on the super chats, go back and forth, where they say that he's gotten soft in what I'm getting ready to tell you. And it's him saying that we need to also pray for the people that commit the crimes, that we also have to have some form of forgiveness and prayer for those people as well. And when you think about how Nick Fuentes has been presented to us, and then you see the people's reactions to Charlie Kirk and how they manipulate and radicalize their group of followers, is Nick really the one that's the racist, the one that's a mosquito, as he was referred to, a blood-sucking mosquito in that New York Times article? Is he the one that's really riling up people to go out there and commit violence, to crash out, and to feed into this civil war? This civil war that, if you watch the show for the last 3 years, you know that I feel that we've been headed this way for a very long time. And it's always shifted. Is it black and white people? Is it involving the Jewish community? Like, who's going to be at odds? What are the sides that are going to be picked when we go into this civil war? But there's definitely chaos that has been intentionally brewed in America, as well as throughout the world, for us to get up, take arms, and make sense of going to war with our loved ones simply because we've been manipulated by the powers that be that divide and conquer us. Nick is saying, don't take up arms. This is not a call for violence. We have to address people politically. Even he was talking about the guy, I'm not as familiar with him, but I believe his name is Hassan Piker. He said that Hassan Piker used this event to make a glib remark about gun control. And I've seen a few different people, I think Madani, and others. We may even play some clips throughout this video highlighting, or maybe wait till the live show this morning, play some clips highlighting people's responses and trying to use this situation to push their political agendas. Like, damn, like, do we ever just take a break and just say, like, let's just process this? We don't have to have a instant response. We don't have to use this situation for our own personal interest and benefits. We can just let the man rest and respect him and his family. Nick finished off by saying, trade your sword for a cloak. Be as clever as a serpent, as innocent as a dove. I believe that's scripture. Let me make sure. It says that trade your sword for a cloak and be as clever as a serpent, as innocent as a dove, come from two different parts of the New Testament, reflecting Jesus's changing instructions to his disciples. I believe this was when his disciples were ready to defend him. We got to figure out a different way. We got to be smart enough to figure out a different way. If we don't figure out something else, this is only going to lead to one destination. That Noah's Ark moment, it's been creeping up on us. And if we don't address it, then the levees are going to break. We're in this struggle until we die. Isn't that what he said? This is a long haul thing. This struggle is to bring positivity to humanity, to bring us together based on principles, morals, and values, and to stop allowing ourselves to be divided based on silly things that are completely out of our control, like race, for instance. We're going to allow that to be what divides us rather than allowing principles, morals, and values and common goals bring us together, unite, and have harmony, have peace, and leave this world in a better and safer place for our next generations. So we're in this struggle for the long haul. And I think maybe a lot of us want to reevaluate if the struggle that we're currently involved in is one that pushes us in a positive direction or one that feeds into the negative. That's my reaction. That's my reaction. Just calling for us all to do better. Calling for us all to do better. Have grace. Grace for the people that don't see the world the same way that we do, don't feel the same way that we do, but allowing ourselves to unite on that one commonality. And this has to be the commonality of wanting society to do better and humanity to live in harmony. So I'll leave y'all with that. As always, appreciate y'all tapping in. Appreciate y'all supporting. And I'll see y'all in the next video.